You think self-awareness is the answer to all your problems? It's not. And it might actually be making things worse. Look, I get it. You've done the work. You know your triggers. You can name your attachment style. You understand why you procrastinate, why you self-sabotage, why you pick the same type of toxic person over and over again. You've journaled. You've therapized. You've podcasted your way through every self-help guru on the internet. And yet here you are, still stuck, still doing the same things, still feeling the same feelings. Because here's what nobody tells you about self-awareness. Knowing your problems doesn't fix them. It just makes you really good at narrating your own dysfunction. I spent years thinking I was healing just because I could explain myself. I'd tell people, oh yeah, I have avoidant attachment because my parents were emotionally unavailable. Like that was some kind of badge of honor. Like understanding it meant I'd moved past it. Spoiler alert. I hadn't. I was still avoiding intimacy, still pulling away when people got close, still sabotaging relationships the second they got real. The only difference was now I had a fancy psychological explanation for it. Now I could intellectualize my way out of actually changing anything. And that's the trap. Self-awareness feels productive. It feels like growth. It feels like you're doing something. But feelings aren't facts. And analysis isn't action. Think about it. How many times have you sat there, fully aware that you're about to make a bad decision, and then you make it anyway? You know you shouldn't text your ex, you do it anyway. You know you should go to bed, instead of scrolling for 3 more hours, you scroll anyway. You know you need to have that difficult conversation, you avoid it anyway. Because self-awareness without self-regulation is just self-torture. It's like watching yourself fail in high definition. You become the narrator and the character in your own tragedy. And somehow that feels worse than just being unconscious about it. At least when you didn't know better, you had plausible deniability. Now you're just choosing to stay stuck. And you know it. That's the dark side nobody talks about. Self-awareness can become its own prison. You start using your insights as excuses instead of explanations. I can't help it, I'm a Scorpio. I can't help it, I have ADHD. I can't help it, I'm traumatized. And look, I'm not saying those things aren't real. They are. Trauma is real. Neurodivergence is real. Personality traits are real. But at some point, understanding why you are the way you are has to translate into doing something about it. Otherwise, you're just collecting diagnoses like Pokemon cards. I see this all the time. People who can give you a TED talk about their emotional patterns but can't sit with discomfort for 5 minutes. People who know all the therapy words but still blow up their lives every 6 months. Because knowing is only step 1. It's the easiest step, actually. The hard part is what comes after. The hard part is sitting in the discomfort of change. The hard part is doing the thing you don't want to do even though you know you should. Self-awareness tells you where the door is, but you still have to walk through it. And that's terrifying. Because walking through the door means giving up your old identity. It means letting go of the stories you've been telling yourself. It means you can't blame your parents anymore. You can't blame your ex anymore. You can't blame your circumstances anymore. Once you're self-aware, the responsibility shifts. And that weight is heavy. So what do we do instead? We stay in analysis mode. We keep digging deeper. We keep finding new layers of trauma to unpack. We keep searching for the one insight that will finally fix everything. But that insight doesn't exist. There's no magic realization that suddenly makes you a different person. Change happens in the boring, unglamorous moments. It happens when you notice the urge to check your phone and you don't do it. When you feel the anxiety rising and you breathe through it instead of numbing out. When you want to run away and you stay anyway. Those tiny moments of choosing differently. That's where actual transformation lives. Not in your journal, not in your therapy session, not in your deep late-night realizations, in the moment, in the choice, in the action. And here's another thing about self-awareness that nobody mentions. Sometimes it makes you insufferable. You start psychoanalyzing everyone around you. You can't just have a normal conversation anymore. Everything becomes a deep dive into attachment styles and trauma responses. Your friend is stressed about work, and you're like, well, actually, that's probably related to your relationship with your father and your need for external validation. Like, no. Sometimes people are just stressed about work. Not everything needs to be deconstructed. Not every moment needs to be a therapy session. Self-awareness can make you so focused on the internal that you forget to just exist in the external. You forget how to be present because you're too busy observing yourself being present. It's exhausting. For you and for everyone around you. And then there's the comparison trap. You start measuring your self-awareness against other people's. You judge people who aren't as enlightened as you. You roll your eyes at people who haven't done the work. But here's the truth. Self-awareness isn't a competition, and it definitely isn't a personality trait. Just because you know your Enneagram number doesn't make you better than someone who doesn't. Just because you've been to therapy doesn't make you more evolved. It just makes you someone who's been to therapy. And honestly, some of the most self-aware people I know are also the most stuck. Because they're so busy understanding themselves that they forget to actually live. They're collecting insights instead of making memories. They're processing feelings instead of feeling them. They're preparing for life instead of living it. Because here's what self-awareness doesn't give you. It doesn't give you courage. It doesn't give you discipline. It doesn't give you the ability to sit with discomfort. Those are separate skills. And they have to be built through practice, not through understanding. You can know exactly why you're afraid of rejection and still be paralyzed by it. You can understand your people-pleasing tendencies and still say yes when you mean no. Knowledge without action is just trivia. So what's the solution? Do we just give up on self-awareness altogether? No, of course not. Self-awareness is important. It's the starting point. But it can't be the ending point. You have to take what you know and do something with it. You have to move from awareness to acceptance to action. Awareness is seeing the pattern. Acceptance is acknowledging that it exists without judgment. Action is choosing to do something different. And that last part is where most people get stuck. Because action requires vulnerability. It requires risk. It requires the possibility of failure. It's easier to stay in your head. It's safer to keep analyzing. At least then you feel like you're making progress, even if you're not. But real progress is messy. Real progress means trying and failing and trying again. It means being awkward and uncomfortable and not having all the answers. It means showing up even when you don't feel ready. Especially when you don't feel ready. Because you're never going to feel ready. You're never going to have it all figured out. You're never going to reach some mythical state of complete self-understanding. You're a human. You're complicated. You're constantly changing. There will always be more to discover, more to understand, more to work on. But at some point, you have to stop preparing and start participating. You have to stop studying your life and start living it. And that doesn't mean abandoning self-awareness. It means using it as a tool, not as a shield. It means being curious about yourself without being consumed by yourself. It means asking, what do I need to do differently? Instead of just, why am I like this? Because the why is interesting. But the what is useful. The why gives you context. The what gives you direction, and direction is what creates change. Not understanding, not insight, not awareness. Action, repeated action, consistent action, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you don't want to, even when you'd rather just think about it some more. That's the real work. That's the hard part. That's what actually transforms you. Self-awareness is just the map. But you still have to take the journey. So if you're sitting there right now, fully aware of all your issues, congratulations. You know where you are. You know where you need to go. Now the question is, are you going to do anything about it? Or are you going to spend another year analyzing yourself, understanding yourself, explaining yourself, and staying exactly where you are? Because self-awareness without change is just expensive self-consciousness. And life is too short to spend it narrating your own stagnation. If this hit different, subscribe for more uncomfortable truths.